Okay. Does that come up with something to say is recording on your screen?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, great. We've got a Q&A session at the end, so please do hold on to your questions in the first part of the session, and then we'll address them at the end. And also, like, if you've got questions to put in the chats as well, it's a bit tricky to kind of go backwards on the chat when we get to the Q&A to hunt for those questions. So if you want to put a question in the chat, specifically about this clinic, the heading of this clinic, just do it at the Q&A section as well later on. So we will address general questions in the Q&A, and if you have questions that's really specific to your project, you can get in touch with your senior officer or manager, who might be able to help you on a one-to-one basis. If you need any support during the session, just let someone know in the chat. Please keep muted as well while others are speaking during the Q&A. Why are we here today? So we want to understand what you need to do when your project will be delivered in a public space, and then guide you through the process that is involved in gaining permissions to use public spaces, and answer your questions. Sorry, answer your questions to make sure you feel confident. Just a quick schedule. So we're just going to run through things that should be happening. Then we'll pass it over to Sarah and Nicola. We'll go into questions, next steps, and then there's so few of us today. We're probably going to finish a lot earlier than scheduled. So yeah, don't worry too much about the timescales on the left-hand side there. Things that should be taking place now. So I've sort of mentioned this in the last clinic as well. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, to sign your grant agreement document and send it back to your neighbourhoods. Make sure that all your agreed documents that stated in the grant agreement is provided to your neighbourhood senior officer and manager. If you're going to be using compost as well, make sure you return the signed consent form. And if you're an organisation, your senior officer or manager will provide the guidance and information for you to register to set up a new account to receive the grant as well. So yeah, we're waiting for some documentation still for some projects. So if you're one of them, please do so urgently. So we're just going to run through some examples of projects that would need permission. So I'm just going to go to the next slide and hand over to Sarah and Nicola.
Thank you, Chris. So yeah, Chris put this slide together for me today, which is really nice of him because it was something I'd forgot to consider in our little pack. But we just wanted to provide some examples of previous projects, and then, as Chris mentioned, the permissions that would be required around that, or some of the things that we worked on last year that we kind of identified needed kind of bespoke things. So we've got deliver fitness sessions and workshops in Nuremberg Park. So you would need a parks booking form. And Nicola, please jump in on any of these if I miss any of the information. So you'd need a parks booking form to complete that. And then later on in the slides, I'll show you where you can access that parks booking form. You've got the art workshop festival. So again, that will be like a highways permissions and licenses. So sometimes I need a special license to close off some roads or put some restrictions in on the road closures. And that would be over to highways to do that. The gardening workshops. So again, you could seek some advice on the types of materials that you want to use. And again, look at our parks booking and permissions page. And I think there were some questions last year around the soil or the gravel that was used when we was planting some vegetable gardens. Mural permissions. So we've had a couple of murals that wanted to go on to buildings that are subletted by us. So we've got another supplier in the building. You'd need their consent to do anything on the external walls. So last year we had a nursery. We owned the building as LBN, but the nursery was responsible for the maintenance of the mural on the wall, or they had to agree to it. So it's just making sure you get the right permissions from everybody that you need to get them from. And then installation of the basketball hoops. Again, to have any kind of equipment in the parks, there needs to be a parameter, or I think it's not 2 meters, or a specific to each individual project or item. There needs to be a parameter around each of those things. So like even a tennis table, it needs to have a certain amount of safe space around it for people to be able to get around and access it, and people using the equipment to have a safe space, so it's not on the edge of a curb or a pond or a street. So they're the things that you need to consider. Have I missed anything, Nicola, or covered most of it? Anything to add?
No, I think that's good. So, overview, good.
A quick overview. So if you have got questions, just pop them in the chat and I can pick them up afterwards, or we can recap and go over anything you feel like I've gone through too quickly.
Thanks, Sarah. I don't think Sarah's here yet, but there may be some specific ways of gaining permissions for the Roldocs area as well, through the Roldocs team and their properties as well. So yeah, if you are part of the Roldocs area, do get in touch with Lisa and Anna or Medine in your team, just to get the specifics on that as well. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which Sarah's just going to continue presenting.
Thank you. So yeah, we just wanted to take you through the parks booking process really. So I know you'll get sent around this slide and you all have the link to the booking system. But if I share the screen, I'm going to take you through the web page, and then we'll take you through what the form looks like, so you kind of get an overview before you have to actually go in and do it. I don't know if any of you have completed the parks booking form yet. So let me share my screen. And Nicola, while I'm sharing, did you want to run through anything that I might need to cover?
Yeah. It's gone. I was just answering questions in the chat actually.
Thank you. Just
Um,
making sure. Right. Can you see my screen of the parks booking page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I've kind of jumped ahead. I've clicked on that link, and this is where the link will bring you. It'll bring you into our parks, community parks and leisure page, and then you'll go to, so if I just take a back step. So this is the main page that you'll come into after clicking that link if you're using it through that presentation document. And then you'd go down to parks and open spaces. And then you would look and come down and find book a park space for an event. And then it will lead you onto this page. Here you can access, so again, we have some kind of like little flags at the top just to let you know when the services are available. And then we've got some allotment and park events booking and pitch booking information down here. So do keep an eye out for any of these kind of yellow flags or notifications. And then we've got here, if you want to book your event or your sports day in one of the parks, you've got a Word document form that you will need to complete. So I'm just going to click into that. It'll ask you to download it. Let me bring it across to the other screen. And then within the booking form, it's got a set of criteria or a set of information that you need to provide to us. If you are unsure about any of this information, where can they find clarity on that, Nicola?
So the application forms, there currently is only one application form for whatever your event is. So it could be that you're doing a very small event and a lot of the information on there will be irrelevant. It won't. So as you go through the form, I mean, the key things are really putting your event dates on there, which park and your start and finish times and numbers. So probably that first page is really kind of critical to give us an overview of what you're planning to do, and depending on the size of your events and what you plan to do will depend on which questions you need to answer as you go through. But if you go to the very end of the form, there is some guidance notes on there to give you an idea of what we were looking for.
Sorry, I think it's
yeah.
I'll go into one page.
Yeah. So and that will help you answer the questions there. So there's question 1, question 2, it will help you answer them. But if you do have any questions, you can email the parks booking email address as well, and we'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible with any questions that you have. There are some links on them to help as well, kind of give you some links to other people who can help with your events as well.
I'm just looking. Is that the parks booking email on here? I think it's at the top, isn't it? To return the form back to. Just quickly go back up. Yeah, here we go. So this is the email. If you've got any questions, you can email the parks booking at Newham, as Nicola mentioned.
So
does anybody have any?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions coming up. So there's the parks bookings are for any park or green space. And I know the highways, if you're doing litter picks, I know Jenny, I think you've previously spoken directly with Rumour's team. I believe.
Yeah, we usually arrange it directly with her.
But you're doing highways mainly, are you? Is that right? Or
yeah, we've I think maybe we've done one litter pick in the park, but we didn't actually, although we met in the park, we didn't litter pick in the park. We came round to the road. So we don't tend to do them in the parks. The parks are always nice and clean.
Thank you.
It's the road.
That's good feedback. Yeah.
So yeah, if you are doing litter picks in the parks or on the green spaces that we manage, then we would like you to book in to complete a booking form, and we can arrange for the litter to be picked, to be collected at certain points and times. Yeah, so we can help you arrange that. We can get you litter picks, gloves, those types of things. So we can get you help with equipment, and then we can arrange for the waste to be collected so that it's not left on the street. Yeah, over the weekend, because a lot of litter picks do happen at the weekend.
And then just some additional information. So when you have completed your booking form, we just ask that you provide the risk assessment, public liability insurance certificate, and then a site map. So the more information you provide to park services, the better it will be that we can assess it, and the quicker it will be we can move forward with the project. We've had a couple of little delays with like going back and forth with some information. So like I said, if you can provide as much information in the first instance, that will really help us to progress a lot more timely. And then there is a event license form. Again, I can share my screen and show you what that looks like.
And just while Sarah's doing that, we are a very, very small team, and we currently don't have a bookings officer who is going through the bookings. So we're kind of sharing that role at the minute. So it does take us a little bit longer. So what I would say is if you know you're going to be holding an event in the summer, don't wait till the summer to put your application in. Put it in as early as possible. And if you need to tweak it or submit a new kind of layout for your activities or anything, then we can always do that nearer the time. That, you know, we can be fairly flexible, but what we really need is the applications in as early as possible so that we can start going through them. And then if we've got any concerns or people need to apply for licenses, we can talk to you about that, how you do that. If they're quite large community events, some of them do have to go to the safety advisory group, but those are quite large scale and we have to program that meeting in. And if your event did need to go to that, it wouldn't get approved until you've been through that process. So depending on the size of your event, it depends on all those timescales and everything. So it's really difficult to give you examples. But if you do know that you're holding an event, just get in touch with us as soon as you can with the booking forms, and then we'll get back in touch and talk about the individual projects.
Okay. And did you want to give a little overview? You've had more experience than me of the temporary event notice. Nicola, do you want to give some information on that one?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't got that much experience either, but you can apply online for it. It goes to the licensing team. It doesn't come directly to the parks team. So you do need, what I would suggest is that you get permission from the parks team before you apply and pay for an temporary events notice. It's
okay.
It's £21 at the minute, but yeah, it's still.
I was just trying to download it to see what it looked like. It looks like it's not going to load. You can find all the information you need on this page. So you can apply here, or you can write to the licensing team. Okay, thank you. And then we've just put some kind of things to consider down. I won't, Chris, if you don't mind sharing that slide for us. So again, so things to consider is that how long it's going to take to set up and set down your event in the park, what kind of equipment you're going to be using, do you need access for vehicles to the site, and then you have to assess each activity that you're going to have, so the safety of each of the activities, and then is the space suitable and safe. Again, I mentioned about equipment, so that's something to really consider. I don't know if there's like different things for different types of weather, if you need to consider those things into your events, if it's still going to be viable, if it's pouring down gale force winds, you know, if you've got contingency plans kind of in place. And then removal of any waste and rubbish. We can't have the parks left untidy. And each application individually assessed by the parks team. So again, if you're unsure, got any questions, then please reach out to the parks booking team, and we can answer those questions that you have. And then we've got allow for lead time to plan and prepare your event. So again, get in those applications as soon as you can, have those conversations as early as you can. Did you want us to take some of the questions now in the chat, Chris, or wait till the end? Shall I take some questions from the chat?
Sorry, yeah, it's question time now. So
Yep.
I was going to suggest, yeah, if you just pick the questions from the chat first, and then I think there's so few of us, you might just unmute yourself and ask a question. I don't think we need raised hands, this many people.
Okay, let me read out the ones in the chat first. So I've got, please explain why we are voluntarily doing something which is, oh, where's it gone? Which is helping the council to do something they should be doing anyway. Okay, I'm not sure if that's a question or a statement. And is this just for parks or also for highways and greenways? This is quite important, as I say. I can't understand the reasoning for certain events. Alison, are you here? Did you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, no, that is a question. Why would we need, I mean, I think the answer is that we won't be doing litter picks in parks because it just makes it difficult for us. But you know, why? I can understand for, like, you know, like a party, a community event, something like that. But if we've got liability insurance and we've got a risk assessment and we are in communication, why make it difficult for us to do a litter pick? Because we're doing litter picks to help you to do something that you're supposed to be doing anyway. So why do we need permission to do that?
You're on mute, Nicola, if you're talking.
Perhaps Samantha can help, because I've attended litter picks in Central Park.
Sorry, I was on mute and I was off my screen looking at the booking form. So the reason why it's good for you to complete an application form is because there might already be activities booked into the park that you're unaware of. So the activities will clash. And also it helps us to support residents to deliver those litter picks. And like I say, so Dean, you just mentioned the one in Central Park. So we provided litter pickers, gloves, bags. We arranged the collection of the waste and that. So I think we see it as a partnership. We don't see it as a negative that you're doing it. And you know, it's park staff aren't the ones that are dumping the rubbish. I'll just make that clear. We spend a lot of time clearing up rubbish out of the park. So you know, we're very it's great that you people want to do litter picks, and you know, but we're here to support you. But it really is so that we know what's happening in the parks and who's doing it, and to make sure that, you know, that you're safe as an organisation.
Or we're doing it because we see a need.
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it is a partnership, and it would be more of a partnership if it was made less onerous for us for things like that. And also, just my second question was that it's some areas are unclear to whose remit it actually is, and when I've asked the question about whose responsibility is it to clear certain areas, it's been very vague. And I'm thinking, for example, the Beckton corridor and a path that's alongside Beckton DLR station, which are always like full of litter. Are they green spaces, or are they highways?
So anything on a public footpath would be highways responsibility to clear.
Okay. For which we don't need a permission form.
If you's holding an event, I'll check with highways, but as far as I'm aware, I think you just need to let them, again, it's just to let them know that you're doing it.
Good. If we're just letting them know that we're doing it, I think that's fine. You know, we have
they-
our
I think,
yeah.
I think, and there's procedures for getting. I mean, ideally, there's you know, what we don't want is that there is a build up of, you know, if you litter pick and you litter pick a lot of waste, it's making sure that that litter's collected, and that the right teams know what is being collected, when it needs to be collected. And so it's more about, it is more about that partnership, Alison. It's not us trying to prevent you from doing it. And if people need more litter picks and things like that, that's the type of thing that the recycling team can assist with, making sure, you know, if there's a need there, they can support you.
Okay, it's just that it's quite a long form, and you know, like, we are volunteers giving of our time to do these things. So yeah. But and we always have quite successfully, like, communicated with the right teams to have things collected, and had a good relationship like that, you know, with the community neighbourhoods to collect litter pickers and bags and so on. And we now have our own anyway, not the bags, but the other, and we communicate. Jenny's very good at communicating in advance with the waste and recycling to arrange to get things picked up.
Yeah,
it's always worked really well.
Yeah, and I think, Alison, it's really good to, you know, if you're contacting the council and there's that conversation about that you're doing these litter picks, it's always good to for the teams to know that you're doing it. The people in the team who will kind of capture that information, and because, you know, that's a good thing. And is it being recognised throughout the council? I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I think it could be done. You know, it's a good thing that you're out and willing to litter pick and clear up. I mean, yeah, some places are a lot worse than others, aren't they? And and I have seen some photos of some of the litter picks that you have done on Instagram, and like that, yeah, that you've done. And I know you've picked masses of litter down some of them places. Yeah.
Thank you. If that answers your question, Alison, I'll move on. You've got another one, actually. What constitutes a large event, and how many people and music?
So that's, I mean, it's an event by event basis. It's really hard to kind of go through it all at the minute. At the bottom of the booking form, there is an area, it talks about how many toilets you need, how many numbers of stewards you need for the amount of people that you're going to have at your event, how many first aiders. And I think once we get people, if it's a small community event, so say 50 people, then that's kind of like, that's quite low level, but it depends. Are you wanting to have music? Are you planning to have a stage? Are you having entertainment? So there's lots of questions that I would start asking you depending on what's in your application. So I think it is quite hard to answer that question. I think if you've got an event, you need to just put it forward, and then we'll kind of come and discuss with you exactly what you need to make sure that your event's successful. Sorry if that
Brilliant,
wasn't.
No, good. And then Jenny, you've got a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple, so I shout them out, and if you think, sorry, I typed them in my phone. If you think some of them you'll cover later on, you can tell me to shut up. So if we do arts and crafts events at Ichiku, that would be an event. But if we're doing arts and crafts events and say we're going to do one each school holiday, could we fill out one form and put all the dates on?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
So as if you're doing, you can do that, definitely. And then all you would need to do, if you change the activity that you're doing, the craft activity that you're doing, and your risk assessment for the first one doesn't cover, say, the activity you're doing at the second one, just resubmit updated risk assessment.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And then just say
good.
that, yeah, tie it into your original application. That would be fine. Definitely.
And we haven't got our public liability insurance yet. I'm getting it tomorrow, but I saw on the form that it said you had to have 10 million public liability, 10 million in public liability. So just before I ring the insurers tomorrow, is that what I want to be asking for?
Yeah, and we've had conversations with our insurance team about different types of events, and you know what is a reasonable insurance level. And because it's an open public space, they always come back and say 10 million. So we have to make sure that you've got that amount. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. And when we're filling out the form, if it's things like an arts and crafts event, we're not going to have stewards. So can I just write NA across that section?
Yeah, although you won't necessarily have a steward, but you'll have people there assisting. So
Yeah.
you can just, yeah. So depending on the role, just cross out. You can just put NA, that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. And say we had arts and crafts at Ichiku, there isn't a toilet because there's not one there, although I think Brian has included one in his project, and we're going to hire them in if we do have a big lunch. So if it was just arts and crafts and it was at a time when Brian's one wasn't there, would we then be required to have a toilet if we were going to have, say, 20 people there?
It would depend on the length of your event, Jenny, and whether if it's local people that can walk home and they've got toilets. I mean, if you're clear that you're not providing a toilet and people can get home, then that would be fine.
Okay.
You know,
Could I jump in here?
You can.
Okay, so at this stage, we don't know if we're going to be allowed to do the project at all.
No, you don't.
But should we be able to do the project, we are looking at booking a toilet for 6 months minimum.
Ah, brilliant.
And it would be there for use as and when we needed it in our private car park, and we would lock it up the rest of the time. So it depends on very much on next week's meeting, what's going to happen.
Yeah. And obviously, if Brian's one doesn't go ahead, then our litter and fly tipping part of our project will go ahead, but our gardening bit at Ichiku won't go ahead if Brian's doesn't. So then my question would be null and void. And I have got one more. Sorry, my phone's locked. Can
I just say about your toilets though, Brian, if you are thinking of having a toilet, you need to think about it being delivered, it being collected, it being cleaned at some point, especially if longer term. And then you need to think about vandalism and someone damaging it, breaking it, if you're leaving it on site for a long time, a long period of time. Questions really to give you to think about when you're
where we have budgeted for the toilet, we've budgeted for a weekly service.
Okay.
So it includes a lockup and all that kind of thing. And we
Brilliant.
presumably have to do some kind of screening for the vandalism, because that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it would be in it's not exactly an enclosed area, but it's a private area, which is not accessed by that many people. So it's something we can work around. We can actually fence around it temporarily.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds like
We
you've
have
thought
put a lot
it
of
all
thought into
already.
these things.
Yeah.
And my last question, and as I say, if you're going to cover this later, tell me to shut up, was when I did phone for to get the insurance quote last week, they said to me that I had to have a fire risk assessment done for any arts and crafts activities at Ichiku. And I thought that was a bit excessive as it was an outdoor space. So I wondered, has London Borough of Newham, would we be covered on London Borough of Newham's fire risk assessment for Ichiku? Or could you find out? Like, I don't expect you to know that off the top of your head, but they threw me when they asked me, and I thought, why would I do a fire risk assessment for?
That sounds like a really unusual question. And I know there's lots of groups who've got these insurance for events in parks, and I'm not sure that they've been asked that question, Jenny, but I will find out. I mean, a fire risk assessment, they might be thinking of the weather and kind of, if it heats up and the grass gets dry and barbecues and things like that.
Can I say something about that?
You can.
I live in Holland Road, just by West Ham Chew, and that's next to Memorial Park. And half of the park there's a path that runs through the middle, is managed by, I think, ELSA, East London Community Sports Association, and the other is managed by Newham Council. And what happens in the summer, every single summer, so it won't be too long before it starts, is people from outside this area come along, take over the green spaces, set up volleyball nets, start playing volleyball, use the wooden fences of the residents as toilets, and also set up barbecues and sell alcohol illegally. And so, but no one seems to do anything about it. No one ever comes along, closes them down. I had to call the fire brigade myself several years ago because they set up under a bone-dry tree just after Wanstead Flats had burnt up.
I think if those, to be honest, I've not had any reports of those activities taking place over at Memorial. I've only been working in the parks for a couple of years, so I'm sure it sounds like you're talking longer term than that. But I haven't had any reports coming to me of that from last year. We do know there was some.
If you're not told, I don't expect you to know if no one tells you. But what was so shocking was Newham Council's enforcement department was in the next door to the grassroots centre and just said it's nothing to do with us. So it's great to go through all this, you need to do this and fill in this form and do everything else. But these people come every weekend during the summer and no one seems to do anything.
Yeah, it is hard if people aren't telling us that they're there, or we find out after people have left. It's very hard to us. But I will make a note of that, and we will think about how we monitor some of those parks, especially the kind of bigger ones that we know.
I'm not suggesting anarchy, but here we are working out how to fill it all in and follow the process and make the payments and do it all in accord with what you're saying. And yet over here, this is going on. But let's see how it goes this summer. And then if it is a problem, an issue, then I'll contact you.
Yeah. Yes, no, please do. Yeah. It's good to know that that's what's happening. So, yeah.
So I think we'll come back to you on the fire thing, Jenny.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Were there any more questions? Oh, I got one. Why are there no public toilets in Beckton Parks?
I don't know. Sorry, I don't have that answer either. I can find that one out for you as well if you like.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't done much work down in Beckton. I've kind of been focused in other areas.
Okay, we'll take that back to look into that. Chris, over to you again.
So that was the part of the Q&A. I mean, there's plenty of time still, so if you've got any more questions, here's your chance. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up over the next few slides. So do jump in and shout out if you've got any more questions. Well, I'll bring up the next slide.
I guess what I would say about public toilets, actually, this isn't the answer as to Beckton, because I don't know that answer, but they are very challenging to manage where we do have them. I know Central Park, before we had the cafe in place, they were basically just vandalised on a cycle of kind of, we'd repair, they'd vandalise it, repair, vandalise. And actually having the cafe there has been really helpful, because that's actually stopped. And the cafe manage the toilets there when they're open. But yeah, it's a very difficult thing to manage, really. So yeah, it's not straightforward.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. This is just a list of programs that we are proposing for the year. It may change, we're not sure, but the dates that are set so far are the following ones: on the 15th of Feb, which will be about documenting your project, communications and marketing promotion. And on the 21st of Feb, we're going to have one on evaluation, monitoring and learning, part 1. There's 3 parts to that over the year. We're looking for dates for the following ones after that as well. So we hope this evening
Chris,
was
can
useful.
I just ask,
Hi.
on the
Yeah.
March one,
Yeah.
in our project planning budget, we put in a 10% contingency planning, because things are impossible for us and the council to predict. No one thought COVID would happen. Nobody predicted war in Ukraine and cost of living. So we got burnt twice on that in the past. So now, having spoken to project specialists, they said it's always a good idea to keep it modest at 10%.
10%, yeah.
To put that in there, because things do change out of our control.
Definitely, yeah. That would, yeah. I'll make sure. I think Compost is going to help us deliver that one, so I'll make sure they add that type of thing into the content of the presentation. Yeah, thanks, Dean. Appreciate that. But yeah, so that we're looking to deliver that in early March, and yeah, as you can see, the rest of the program is there to view. So your neighbourhood officer will inform you once dates are confirmed as well. So we'll try and set those dates as soon as we can. We'll just need to work with colleagues to help us deliver these. So once we confirm that, we'll set the dates. If you've got any further questions, get in touch with your community neighbourhood senior officer or manager. Please note that the next in-person events for the People Power Places programme is in June. We are literally just setting some dates as we literally last week. So just confirming some dates in June for all neighbourhoods, and where you'll be invited to share your progress on your projects. Dates will be communicated soon. So good luck with your project. And that wraps up the evening quite early today, I must admit. So if you do have a moment, please fill out I'm going to put the link in the chat actually, because you can't, if you're using a device to look at this, you won't be able to scan it. So let me just put the link in the chat.
And then there was just a question about some training on Oracle Fusion, and if that will be available.
Training, sorry, what was that? Say that again.
So I think there was a question on, will there be training on how to use Oracle Fusion? So maybe something you could take back and respond to when the pack.
Using Oracle Fusion.
And then I think there was a suggestion to Get together in a library with the council staff and community neighbourhood staff to complete the forms together.
Yeah.
If there's anything else, I suppose you can think of around.
Yeah,
some
I think there was a bit of
confusion.
guidance that was sent out today, particularly about submitting invoices as well. So I think I did send that out to neighbourhood teams who will disseminate that to you as well. So I think that was directly from the finance team in the council. So hopefully that will help. But if there's anything specifically about using Fusion, yeah, but please do get that sort of support from your senior officer and your
Can I make a comment about Oracle Fusion?
yeah.
I used to work in the city a lot with computers.
Yeah.
And Oracle Fusion is a kind of Rolls Royce. It's designed for someone like British Airways, who are buying food in Hungary and paying forints, and then paying for hotel accommodation in Saudi Arabia. And then it's great, but it's a hugely complex system, and it's really, really hard to use, which is why the consultants get paid 750 quid a day basic. And we managed to use it in each cycle in the Custom House bookshop. But each time it was hugely challenging, not just for us, but for the council staff. So I'd just like to say to anyone out there, if you struggle with it, please don't think you're an idiot. It's really, really hard.
I agree. And I work with council, so I'm not going to argue there. Yeah, it is a bit of a minefield. So do speak to your senior officer and manager to get sort of one-to-one support on doing that. Yeah. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I think that comes to a close. I did put the link in the chat for your feedback, and if there's nothing else, I'm going to stop recording and bring this meeting to a close. Okay. Recording is stopping.